Thank you for joining us. My name is Marguerite Rheinberger. Last year's first ever White Pine Festival featured national and regional musicians and poets who performed in Stillwater and Hudson over a 4-day period. Due to its success, the festival will be back again this year. Joining me today are festival organizers Jim Honsvall and Jim Hainlen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Hainlen, I guess I'm going to have to call you with your last name so you know who I'm addressing. Jim Hainlen, you were one of the original festival organizers. What got you involved?
It started actually in 1983. Went to Aspen Music Festival to see some Stillwater kids out there, and had the idea at Aspen, we have this gorgeous St. Croix Valley. Why couldn't we do the same kind of thing here? Came back, tried to pursue some grants, and talked to some people, but the timing was wrong, and it didn't come through. So when I retired in 2004, some of my former students reminded me of that dream, because I'd talked about it with kids and said, you got the time now, we got the energy, let's go.
What made you want to incorporate both Stillwater and Hudson?
Actually, it's something as simple as seeing some Gazette articles about old-time baseball, and the leagues were Stillwater and Bayport and Hudson and Somerset, and I got thinking, it's the river that unites us. We don't think of it as a geographical boundary that divides us, and it would be so much greater for us to have a St. Croix Valley festival rather than a one side of the river festival.
How did the name originate?
It's a good question, because we went through all of the traditional names, river, river valley, blah, blah. A lot of them are taken. Some of them are taken up under domain names on the web, so we couldn't go to those. And it was actually Dave Griffith from the Community Foundation that said, how about something generic like White Pine Festival? Because we want it to be a festival of the arts, not just a festival of music or a festival of poetry, but of all of the arts as we progress. And we said, White Pine, that's the tree that really made Stillwater and Hudson famous, because that was, the lumbering brought those trees down the river.
I think that actually helped publicity too, that name, because it was so unusual. White Pines Festival, it was like, where's this coming in from Colorado almost? I mean, you had no idea.
Right.
So it was well named.
Yeah, well, we spent a lot of time, and it just seeped out as the best name.
That's great. Jim Honsvall, how did you get involved?
Well, it was through my good friend Jim Hainlen here. 2 of my children had him in school, and I really enjoyed his work and appreciated what he did for the community and for the youth of the community. And he asked me if I would join the board as the treasurer and music enthusiast and so forth. And I'd been quite involved with the community for many years, and so I thought I could add some value to the board, and so I've done that and enjoyed it immensely.
Good. Jim Honsvall is a CPA in Stillwater, and Jim Hainlen is what I would consider a living legend from the school district. Will you explain your background briefly?
Taught in Stillwater for 28 years, 25 of those at Stillwater High School, and was the high school orchestra director there. I actually coached swimming for 3 years in the school system, and but otherwise confined it to music, and we had a wonderful music program, and it continues today.
And obviously your love of music
Absolutely
continues on in this festival.
Yep.
How does the White Pine Festival benefit our communities, meaning Hudson and Stillwater?
Well, I can take that first. I just think that a community is so much improved with a lively cultural life, and there's a lot to offer with the Twin Cities being so close. However, to have it right in our locale, I just think it's good for the youth and the whole community.
So to briefly explain what the festival is, you bring in, as it say, national and regional poets and musicians into the 2 venues. And any other explanation?
Well, yeah, we wanted to have what we think of as being a lot of vertical and horizontal appeal. So vertical we think of as being age. So we have pre-festival things going on in the schools. We have things during the festival that are specifically geared for families and children. And the artists, famous as they are, part of their contract is to interact with young people. So, for instance, this year we have the National Slam Champion Poet back, Roger Bonaire-Agard, and he's going to teach a teen poetry writing class.
Great.
But we don't stop with young children and families. We want to work with seniors too. And Cynthia Gustafson, who was here last year, is coming back and doing a poetry writing workshop out at Boutwell. So that's that vertical appeal. And the horizontal is that there's this great mix of events, from walking tours of Stillwater, Arcola, Hudson, to high-class fine arts things, concerts that are very appealing to a wide range of people. And we want to have things that are right down the center, and then some things that challenge people too.
Well, this you may have already answered the next question, but I'll ask it in case there's something you might not included. Is what do you credit for its great success last year? And I'll ask both of you.
Well, I think success for a lot of things is the planning that goes into it ahead of time, because once you're in it, it's too late. And we spent 2 years planning last year's festival. Detailed planning of the artist lineup, of the schedule, of how we would appeal to people, and marketing those ideas. And people came out, not just from the Twin Cities and not just from Hudson, but from Madison, Des Moines. We even had people fly in from other states that saw it on the internet and spend the whole 4 days here. And they found a festival that had something for them to follow through in a track that was exciting, that was artistically satisfying, and makes them want to come back.
Wow, that's great. Jim, do you share the same sentiments?
Well, I do indeed. But in summary, I think the fact that it crosses all the ages in the community, and the both sides of the river, and the fact that it's a festival as opposed to a concert series. That the artists are here for 4 or 5 days, so it gives the people a sense of something really meaningful going on in the community.
In fact, one of the poets from last year, Tony Hoagland, who is just international poet at this point, ended up writing a poem about Stillwater and sending it to me in November.
Nice.
And he apparently just was sitting downtown Stillwater, and out comes this poem, 5 months later. And he saw some wild turkeys crossing the road up north of Stillwater. That got put into the poem, and kids jumping off the lift bridge into the river got put in the poem. And we see this as nourishing the communities, but we also see it as nourishing the artists. They live very ragged lives. They fly into places, they fly out of places. They have teaching schedules, they have performance schedules. And this is a time for them where they're placed in a community setting, and they're nourished and we're nourished by them being here.